Today I'm working from a sepia photo to produce a colour painting. Hi everyone, Steve Elliott here again. This is a commission that I did over Christmas for a friend of mine, and it's a really old photo. As you can see, it's black and white, sepia kind of thing, and I wanted to do it in colour. This is a picture of my friend and her dad, and back in the late 70s, 80s, he was a goalkeeper for Sheffield United. Now, I know nothing about Sheffield United at all. It's not from my neck of the woods, really. So, but I wanted to do it in colour, this painting. So the first thing I had to do was research the colour of the team. I discovered it was sort of red and white. So I'm assuming the goalkeeper wore a red shirt. The other players wear a red and white striped shirt. And I know grass is green. So pretty much that is all I got to go on to start with. Oh, and I did a little bit of research about the actual football team. And I asked my friend Ellie what if they had got any songs or chants or anything that the football team used. So that chant at the beginning of the video is the butty song, which is the chant that the Sheffield United footballers, supporters chant to support their team. So I thought it'd be fun to put that in at the beginning of the video and the end instead of music. So anyway, let's talk about the background of this painting. I put that on a separate layer, and I've been using brushes lately, or the airbrush tool, for one or two pieces, but that's usually with pencils. And I kind of tried out different techniques and different things. I began with the grunge brush, just sort of scumbling on some colour all over the canvas, and I changed the background to dark green. And none of it was working. And in the end, I came up with what I'm doing now, where I sort of really looked close at the photo. I saw there's a smoky chimney there, which is really what Sheffield, it was heavy industry back in the 70s and 80s. They had a lot of steelworks and things. And I remember being in a band, playing guitar and going off to Sheffield a lot, playing the working men's clubs. And they got some wicked clubs there because there's a lot of heavy industry. So I thought it'd be cool to put that sort of smoky chimney in the background to get that sort of grimy Sheffield heavy works thing going off. And then I sort of used the turpentine brush to scrub in some colour into the foreground of the grass. So I wanted to keep it fairly dark at the front and then a little bit lighter. And eventually I came up with something I like. So the background took me quite a while. And then the other thing was the photo, the actual resolution of the photo was really, really bad. So there was no way I was going to get much detail out of these photos. So I thought, well, that's okay, because I can go with my very loose style. So I did a lot of the painting using the turpentine brush, which is a default brush within Procreate. And I'm using that now, as you can see, sort of getting in these sort of or the underpainting of of Ellie, the little girl, and her dad in there. And I was sort of struggling with tonal colours for the face. She's got like an orange face, not too cool at the minute. So all of it, I didn't have a palette. I was just sort of selecting colours as I was going. I was sort of drawing on the work I'd done on the painting in the style of sort of thinking about the shadows that the painters were using in those portraits, and they were using lots of really sort of warm, almost red colour in the shadow area. So that's what I've tried to go for here. You see under his chin, I've got a sort of reddy colour. I pretty much lose all that orange. I did a lot of clipping and moving around with the selecting tool. Then in the end, I used the liquify tool a lot just to refine things and get them just as they were. Because you can see there at the minute, this is not looking like the photo at all. But I'm not too worried at this stage because I'm sort of working on getting the basic shapes in, and sort of, as you know, I don't sort of sketch things out. I paint shapes and then refine those shapes and refine them a bit more and refine them a bit more and keep refining them until I get something that resembles the photo. So if you look now, the mouth is completely wrong, and you know, it will probably stay that way for quite a while. I did lots of tweaking and moving around of objects and shapes and things just to get it right. I spent a long time on the face, and it's looking like it's going the totally wrong way. I made the eye a bit bigger there, and I did struggle. with the face. I think it was because the photo was so bad. I didn't have a look. And look at the photo of the little girl, even worse. I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to get this looking like the photo? So I just sort of began by painting in these shadows, and it was a matter of just keep working at it. It took me quite a long while, actually. I probably spent maybe 2 days on this, but I suppose it is 2 portraits. I had a lot of fun doing it though, because you know, I've sort of been going through a bit of a bad time with my dad, who's ill at the minute. He's getting better though. He's sort of on the mend and everything, and sort of doing a portrait of Ellie with a dad sort of touched a note in me, and so I was really happy to do this. I wanted to do it, and I wanted to make a good job of it. So it was a fun thing to do, and it was sort of post-Christmas, after Boxing Day, in between the New Year, and I was just wanting to, I'd already done my a little bit of sketching, the video before this one, and then I wanted to get back into doing a painting again, so this was a great one to have a go at. Working on the clothes now. So if you see, I'm sort of using 3 colours of red on the shirt. I've got this sort of dark red for the shadows, then the sort of mid colour, which is really almost a pure red, pillar box red, I suppose, or something of that nature. And then I'm using this almost pink salmony colour for the highlights of the shirt. You can see I'm sort of refining things as I'm going all the while. I struggled with the legs for ages, because if you look at the photo, it's actually the photo I'm working on, it's not taken straight on, and I didn't consider that for ages. And I kept thinking, why are my legs looking so small and squat at the bottom? And it didn't dawn on me right till near the end that the actual photo is distorted, and then I had to use the liquify tool to stretch them out and make them a bit more realistic. And I wanted to go in with this sort of grungy paint thing around the legs and the feet. I didn't want to paint all the detail in there. I wanted it to leave a lot to the imagination, almost as if they're melting into the ground, really. Use the crop tool there to move the leg out a little bit, continually refining and looking. And I did sort of take artistic license a little bit on the faces eventually, and added a little bit more detail. I felt it needed it as I was going. So I got the face way too fat there. And I don't know what's happening with this sort of smile that's sort of chopping a face in half on the left-hand side. It's amazing when you look back how obvious things are wrong when you're working on them. You see, I'm making use of that liquify tool. That's a fairly new feature in Procreate, which I'm really liking. I don't use it as much as I should do, really. It's sort of half the time when I'm using the crop tool, I'm thinking after when I'm sort of blending all the colours back in, could have used liquify. It might have been a bit easier there. So here we now. I created a new layer for these lines on the shirt. So, and I set the blend mode to overlay. And that way it sort of kept the shadows. So even though I was using a sort of an off-white colour, it adjusted nicely, or as I was painting over it, the overlay effect kept the shadow there on the white, if I'm making any sense at all. But I thought that worked really well for those sort of pinstripes on the shirt. And I just sort of scribbled in some lettering, nothing that you could read. I didn't think you needed that. You didn't need to be, you know, it's a painting. It's not a photograph. So I'm all about the squiggle me, if I can get away with doing any detail. Just sort of strengthening up those shadows, trying to put in the shadows in, gives you the form, gives you shape to what you're painting instead of it appearing flat. And I kind of overdid it at one point, and I made the shadow on the right hand side of the little girl that was too dark, and I had to lighten that up later on. So you've got to be careful with it. And also noticed there was, when I thought I'd finished it, there was quite a few things that were not exactly as I wanted them. So I'll talk about that in a minute when I get to when I sign it. Sort of notice I'm putting a few highlights in the face there. That was just to, again, give a bit of roundness to the face instead of it looking flat. Sort of put in a bit of shadow on the legs there as well. Realising I'd done the trousers wrong there, on the shorts on the little girl. They needed to go a little bit higher, so I sort of worked on them a bit. Generally looking all over the painting, looking at things, adjusting all the time, never stopping at one point. Here you can see, this is where I thought I got the shadow on the edge of the face way too dark, so I sort of lightened that up a bit. And I spent quite a bit of time on the face. I felt Dad needed more highlights in there just to add a bit of roundness to his face, and also a few darks to sculpt in those dimples in his cheeks, working on the legs again. So jumping all, as I do, I'm all over the place, tweaking it and just sort of making adjustments as I'm going, putting those final touches in. I felt I got him a little bit on the fat side there, so just sort of trimmed him up a little bit. Loving the background now, where you can see that chimney with the smoke coming out of there. Very industrial. Getting really close to finishing it, just putting final details in here and there. So I think this is going to be printed on a canvas. So I think this is, I've got it just right for what I wanted. I was really pleased with this. So that is it. That is my painting of Ellie and her dad at Sheffield United football ground many, many years ago. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, a big thumbs up, as always, is much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, because I have lots of videos like this and I would love to be sharing them with you. So hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye.